Hello. Oh, hi. I don't know if you can hear me through this mask or not, but I'm getting ready for Sunday. So before we do, I'm going to read my message. Let me take this off. It's a little awkward. Before we talk over the worship restrictions, I want to lift up your faithfulness and God's generosity in this difficult time. The first thing is that no one from St. James has reported to us that they suffered COVID-19. For that, we are grateful. Some have walked with loved ones through the terrible illness into recovery. A few have lost loved ones to COVID-19, and with them we have mourned from a distance. Our dear Doris Oberg, passed away from a terrible cancer. Her family hopes in the future that we can have a memorial service celebrating her joyful and dynamic personality and her life of faithfulness. On another note, I want to express my gratitude and the gratitude of your wardens, vestry, and treasurers about your faithful prayers, worship, ministry, and generous giving. There were lots of quick changes, really turning things upside down, that had to happen in mid-March. But because you reacted so quickly and cooperated with everything we asked, our feeding ministry and our operating budget haven't missed a step. Thanks be to God for your devotion to Christ, lived out through St. James. Lake County churches and partners of all kinds have also supported us through these difficult days, and I'm confident we will continue in partnership with them as this storm continues to roll. As we human beings learn to live with this virus, it is imperative that we keep our intentions focused on love of God above all things and love of every neighbor as a reflection of God. Our call as Christians is to save the world, one moment at a time, and to save the world especially when one act in little moments leads us out of our comfort into sacrifice for the sake of the gospel. And now for that letter. Dear parish family, St. James will resume in-person worship Sunday, July 5th at 8 a.m. with Rite I morning prayer. We ask that you bring your own prayer book, wear a mask, keep your distance, wash your hands with soap and water or use a hand sanitizer, and stay home if you are feeling sick, even just under the weather. It is not 100% safe to attend church. A typical church service is a level 8 risk on a 10-level scale. So we will not conduct a typical church service. If an attendee who comes refuses to comply with our mandates, we will have to end the service and dismiss the congregation to keep everyone safe. So let's do that so we can continue to worship together in our space. If you do not have your own prayer book or a mask, we will have a small number that are available to you. Prayer books will be checked out to parishioners, a parishioner household, for the remainder, if you need one, for the remainder of our time in these restrictions. We will not hold in-person 10:30 services until the vestry assesses that adherence to our new protocols is working. Why 8 o'clockers? 8 o'clock is a simpler service, typically with fewer people, and those who do come more frequently, and so are better able to learn the new protocols and give us feedback on what's working and how they might feel safer. Worship, like everything else, will be different. Our protocol does comply with the Diocese of Ohio document, amended regathering guidelines, and has been approved by the bishop's team regarding regathering for COVID-19. We are also using techniques from Cleveland Clinic's Guide to Faith Leaders on resuming worship in sacred spaces. The Cleveland Clinic techniques focus on 3 stages: Screen, clean, distance in between. Screen, stay home if you feel unwell or are in one of the high-risk categories for severe illness or mortality. Clean, first, about your cleaning. Cover your nose, mouth, and chin with a mask. Avoid touching the front of the mask if you need to remove it. And if you do touch the front of your mask or sneeze or cough, make sure before you touch anything else that you either use a hand sanitizer of 60% alcohol or wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap and water. For our part, we will use EPA-rated sanitizer that's safe on our wood for frequently touched surfaces. We'll also be using appropriate cleaning techniques for the entire space before and after we use it. The third stage is distance in between. Think about safe, S-A-F-E, 6 feet away from everyone outside your household, in all directions, including behind you. Avoid touching others, their belongings, or sharing surfaces, and do not congregate in a small space, even for a short period of time. When you come through the narthex, just move through the narthex and make sure you're keeping distance. Now, screen is the most important step to keep each other safe. If an usher or I notice a symptom of COVID-19, we may ask you to return home and encourage you to be checked by calling your healthcare provider. We will not be doing temperature checks at St. James. So if you have any of these symptoms, even mild, we ask that you stay at home. Coughing, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, a fever of 100.4 Fahrenheit or higher, chills, muscle pain, fatigue or lethargy unusual, sudden loss of smell or taste, a sore throat, or diarrhea or nausea. If you have risk factors for higher mortality from COVID-19, please stay home. God knows where you are. God hears your faithful heart, and we know that you join us in communion. But here is the CDC list of conditions from June 25th. It's not exhaustive, but just the categories. Lung disease puts you at a very high risk, including but not limited to COPD, lung cancer, lung transplant, asthma, moderate to severe, especially if you have to have a daily medication, pulmonary fibrosis, which is damaged or scarred lungs, many chronic medical conditions, including but not limited to diabetes, 1 or 2, heart disease, kidney disease, sickle cell disease, cerebrovascular disease, cystic fibrosis, hypertension or high blood pressure, liver disease, blood disorders, neurological disorders, including dementia, and even obesity as a chronic medical condition can put you at higher risk. Immunocompromised state, including but not limited to cancer, either as a survivor or a current patient, organ transplant, immune deficiencies, HIV, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, inflammatory bowel disease, or use of any corticosteroids or other immune-weakening medicines. If you have a question about that, please ask your doctor. Pregnancy, or if you may become pregnant, puts you at a very high risk. Smoking, tobacco or other substances in cigarettes, vaping devices, cigars, or pipes, and age is a risk factor. In particular, 80 years and older has a significant high mortality rate. So please consider staying home or taking extra precautions if you do come out. Age alone increases our risk beginning at 18 and just goes up exponentially. Here's the deal. Being human presents a risk of contracting the virus and suffering symptoms. Risk of severe illness or a higher risk of mortality is a complex calculation, and we trust you to make decisions that fit into your context and your family. So let's consider my family. Both of my children have the lowest risk of mortality or severe illness when you take into account their age, their health, and their medical conditions. Well, lack thereof, thank God. Based solely on age, my husband is at a higher risk than me. But if you add health factors, different conditions, into the age factor, I actually have the greatest risk in my household. A mild asthma, which does not require medicine every day, but in some months it does. A history of smoking tobacco in my teens and early 20s, several incidents of bronchitis, one of pneumonia, and a higher body mass index than Mark does. I'm not in a medically high risk group, but I am more vulnerable than anyone else in my house. In addition, we provide care for Mark's parents, who are at significant risk due to their medical conditions and age. So even my children have to live with greater caution than many of their friends. St. James, we are a loving, generous, and courageous parish who are willing to sacrifice for Christ's call to love our neighbor in visible ways. Each of these protocols, recommended and interpreted by the diocese, the CDC, and Cleveland Clinic, and reviewed fully by your vestry, have been chosen from this perspective. We love God first, and as images of God, we love one another in sacrifice. You have my affection, and you have my trust. This is Mother Vanessa. God bless you. Have a good night.